And today we're going to talk about a very important topic that you're going to use a lot going forward in math, and it's the coordinate plane. So today we're going to introduce the coordinate plane, talk about all the lovely things that are contained within this plane. All right, so do you guys know what did the spider do on a computer? Because I saw it like crawling around my computer the other day. And guess what it was making? A web site. Today's lesson target is we're going to identify the parts of the coordinate plane. We're going to describe the location of a given point as an ordered pair. And we're also going to identify and graph ordered pairs in the four quadrants. And if that sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo to you, trust me, we're going to get to understanding every part of that description. And you are going to find a way to kind of navigate the coordinate plane today. So don't panic if that sounded crazy. All right, guess what? Vocab time. Okay, so first one is axis. So an axis is a reference line drawn on a graph. So if you look at this image I have on your screen right now, it is the red line and the blue line. Those are the axis. One of them has an X next to it. One of them has a Y next to it. And we use them as a place where we can measure how far left or right of one of them or above or below another one is. But they're called the axis, okay? Next up, we have the origin. Okay, this is the point, so do you see our axis is there again? I see the Y, and I see the Y, and I see the X-axis. Those are our, they intersect at the middle. And where they intersect is called the origin, okay? The origin right there in the middle, that red dot. Okay, this is the point of the intersection of the X and Y axis. And their value is 0, 0. That's their ordered pair value. If you don't understand what that means, you're gonna in a little bit. But that's the origin. Okay, we're going to take those two things we just talked about. We're going to take the x-axis, which you can see going across here. We see the x-axis and we see the y-axis. So you see those. And you're going to say, let's cross them at 90-degree angles. And we're going to put our origins right here in the middle. All right, so there's the origin. And what you see is a grid behind it. And a grid behind it, like all these little light blue lines going up and down, those all represent a value. So you can see from the origin, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 this way. From the origin, we're counting -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6 in that direction. From the origin, we are counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And from the origin, we are counting down -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. Okay, so this whole thingamabobber right here with the axis, with the origin, with the grid behind it, with the values is called the coordinate plane. So we still see our coordinate plane, right? We see the axis, we see our origin, we see another axis, okay? And so within that, we have four quadrants, okay? And we're going to dive into this in pretty good detail today, but here is a quadrant right there, okay, this area. And it really goes on forever. Like it goes on forever that direction, and it goes on forever that direction, and it goes on forever that direction. That is a quadrant. And then we have another quadrant over here, right? Does the same thing. It goes in this section here, and it goes in those directions forever. That's another quadrant. So we're breaking it down into four quadrants. It's a way for us to better use the coordinate plane. And then we have ordered pairs. These are two numbers that are written in order, usually written in parentheses like this. This is how we write ordered pairs, okay? Which can be used to show the position on a graph. So when we go back to our coordinate plane, and we know that the ordered pair for something is 12, 5, we can use our understanding of ordered pairs and the coordinate graph to find out where is 12, 5. So when you're thinking about the coordinate graph or coordinate plane, I really want you thinking of like it's a map. So it makes it a little easier to use it as a map. And this first number represents the x value, and the second number represents the y value. Okay, x goes horizontal, side to side. Y goes vertical, up and down, right? This will all make more sense, I promise, as we get into this, but that's another definition for you. Okay, so let's build a coordinate plane using what we understood about That was vocabulary that we just talked about. First thing we need is a pair of axes. All right, so here they are. We draw a line going side to side, and we draw a line going up and down, and they intersect at 90-degree angles, okay? And then we label them. Here's our x-axis, goes side to side. It's like the horizon. And here's our y-axis. It goes up and down, okay? So the next thing we need is an origin, which is the middle. It's where they cross, right there. That is our origin. So we're still building this coordinate plane. And then let's talk measuring x or left and right. So to understand this, we need to understand like what do these values work for? How do we use this graph, okay? So first off, let's talk measuring x. So remember when we get to a coordinate plane, we had the parentheses and we had a number here and we had a number here. So the first thing that we're going to measure is x, which is the left to right. So here's our clue. All right, so anything to the right of the origin or the y-axis. So we're measuring x, we're going side to side. Anything to the right of that simply measures everything positive, okay? So anything to the right, everything to the right of the origin is positive, a positive number, okay? So that's our first coordinate. Anything to the left of that from the origin, if we're going backwards, think about going backwards from the origin, that would be negative. So everything over there is negative. The first value, remember we're talking about the first value in those parentheses would be a positive or negative depending on if they're right or left of the graph. And then we look at it and say, what about up and down? This is our second thing we would be measuring. So anything above it, if we're going up, it's a positive value. Just like a thermometer, if you think about a number line, anything as the temperature goes up, it raises because it's positive. And then if we go below 0, we go downwards, we get negative, right? So everything below that line is negative. So just understanding number lines should help you make sense of that. You know, as we go right, we get positive. And so remember, just think of the origin as 0 because its x value is 0 and its y value is 0. So everything going to the right of it, we're getting bigger. Everything going up, we're getting bigger. Everything going left, we're getting smaller. Everything going down, we're getting smaller. So we're getting negatives in those directions, okay? So knowing that, let's talk about those quadrants. So we're going to use that real quick, right? So knowing that, we can measure x, then y to figure out our quadrant. So first of all, here's quadrant 1. Remember I told you we have to know the order of these quadrants too. This is quadrant 1. And what we know about quadrant 1 is, first of all, we measure x. And everything to the right of the y-axis is a positive value. So x is positive. And then we measure up and down, which is y. Everything above is positive. So quadrant 1 has a coordinate understanding of positive value and a positive value. So x is always going to be, if you have an ordered pair that's a positive, positive, this is where it goes. It's going to be in that quadrant. The second quadrant, x, we always measure x first, left or right. It's going backwards from the beginning. So that means it's going to be a negative value. However, if we measure y, it's going up. So it's going to be a positive value. So quadrant 2 measures coordinate pairs that are negative and then positive. So x is negative, y is positive. Quadrant 3, you guessed it, we're going to measure the same thing. We go left, that means we're going negative. We go down, that means we're measuring negative. So quadrant 3 has all the coordinate pairs that have a negative and a negative. And then we got quadrant 4, go right. Everything that goes right is going to be a positive. Everything that goes up and down, if it goes down, it's going to be a negative. So quadrant 4 gives us a positive, negative. You can see how all of them measure a different thing, right? Quadrant 1 is positive, positive. Are any of the other quadrants measuring that? No. Quadrant 2 is negative, positive. So any of our coordinate pairs that are negative than a positive, that's where they're going, and so forth and so forth. And just for fun, we also measure for quadrants. A lot of times you'll see it written in Roman numerals. And if you don't know Roman numerals, an I is 1, 2 I's is 2, 3 I's is 3, and an I, 4, V. So V represents 5, and then the 1 before it means we take 1 away, so that represents 4. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so now let's get into the ordered pairs. So now I want you, again, think about this coordinate plane as a map. That's super important, all right? So here's our coordinate plane. We've got our x-axis. We've got our y-axis. We've got our origin. Ordered pairs are what we use to locate and move around this fancy map, okay? Order means we do it in order. Pair means there are two things. Ordered, do it in order, sequence. Pairs means there's two of them. We do them in order. All right, so an ordered pair always looks like this. X, then Y. So the first thing we're doing is the X. The second thing we're doing is a Y. Okay? That's the order. Two things, and we do it in order, x, then y. And so I want you to think about x and y. So here's the x-axis right here. All right. So I want you to think about running. You're on the beach, you're on the road, you're in the back of your playground, you're in behind your house. Running, we run side to side, don't we? So when we're thinking about ordered pairs, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run. And you're either going to run forwards or we're going to run backwards. And that's what's going to tell us if we're positive or negative. And the next thing we're going to do is jump. So we're going to run and then jump. And if we jump, what do? We go up. And if we jump, what do we do after that? We come down. So jumping goes up and down. So we're going to run, then jump. And what does that mean? I'll show you here in a second. It means that if we have a pair of numbers in parentheses like this, we call that an ordered pair. Ordered means we use the 2 first and then the 4. So we have a 2. It is a positive 2. So let's run 2. So let's always start at the origin, okay? So here's our 2. We start at the origin, and then we run 2. It's a positive 2. Which direction do we go? We go to the right. And we go 2 places. Each one of these lines is a place. So that's 1 and that's 1. So we went 1, 2. So you can see how we went 2 spaces, okay? The second number says we jump. So we ran over 2 spaces, and then we jump up 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we end up right there. And that would be where our new point would go. So 2, 4 goes right there on the x-axis. We ran 2 and we jumped 4. Okay, and that's how we got to that. Run 2, jump 4. Okay, let's try some more. Okay, so first, remember, run and jump. So I got -3, 2. We're going to run a -3, which means we're going to run backwards because it's a negative number. And we're going to jump 2. That's a positive number, so we're going to jump up. And that's where our point goes. Okay, we get rid of our little dotted lines. We bring down our label so we can label it. That means that is where -3, +2 goes. Run and jump. Let's try another one. -1, -4. Start at the origin, run backwards 1 because that's a -1. And now we're going to jump -4, which means we're going down. All right, this is a bad jump. We're going down 4 spots. And guess what? That's where our dot goes, our new data point. And finally, let's do one more, okay? We got 3, -2. Run, then jump. Okay, so we're going to run 3. That's a +3, so we're going into the positive direction. We're going to jump second, which means -2, so we're going down 2. Negative goes down. Think of the thermometer. And we put our point there, and that is where our data point goes. That's not that hard. Run and jump. All right. So what if they give us the point and we have to label it? And so what we did right now is we had an ordered pair and we found where the point goes. But what if they give us a point and now we have to label it? Yeah, that's not that hard. It's the same thing. We use the running and jumping to get there. So let's try a few. All right. So let's say we have a dot or a data point right there. So we start at the origin. Always start at the beginning and we run. How far do I have to run to get even with that data point? All right, so in this case, I run 1, 2, 3. I ran 3 to the left, 3 to the left. So that means I ran a -3. All right, and so then I have to jump. What did I do to jump? I jumped up 2. So I jumped up 2. So I just made myself an ordered pair. -3, 2. Not bad, right? Pretty simple. That's all you got to do. Let's try another one. Let's say the dot's right here. We're going to run. So I run from the origin, I always run, and I ran to the right 3 spots. So that means I ran a +3. And then I ran down, or I jumped. So I jumped down 2, which means I went -2, right? And that is my new ordered pair. And finally, let's do one more. So I have a dot or data point that's down in quadrant 1, 2, 3. So it's down in quadrant 3. What am I going to do? I'm going to run backwards. That gives me my -1. And then I'm going to jump, which means up or down, 4. But I went down, so it's -4. So that is my new data point. Get rid of the dots, and I've labeled my ordered pairs. So now you know how to set up a coordinate plane. You know about the axis. You know about the origin. You know about the ordered pairs. You know how to plot an ordered pair. You know how to identify an order. You know so many things. Let's just fill in some blanks, though. The 2 lines we use in a coordinate plane that intersect at the origin are the what? They are the x-axis, and they are the y-axis. Boom. The ordered part of the ordered pairs means we use the numbers in a certain what? So I gave you a clue. The order part. So this ordered means what? We use them in a certain order or a sequence. So we do the x, and then we do the y, which means we run, and then we jump. With the x, we move what? Side to side. That's how you run, side to side. And with the y, we move what? up and down because we're jumping. You guys understand? I think you do. All right, so do you guys know why my computer keeps sneezing? It has a virus.